Bryan Shaw got $3 million. Bryan Shaw got $3 million. Bryan Shaw got $3 million. We're going to talk about Bryan Shaw again. We're also going to get into a little bit of fun with the scouting notebook from 1998 and talk a little bit about some players who are, quote-unquote, making waves at camp in the early goings of spring training. While spring training may not matter, it is important to see who is getting talked about more than maybe how they are playing on the field.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So, my name is Jeff Ellis. I'm the host of Locked On Guardians, have been from its inception to almost 700 episodes now. Before that, I was the lead draft and prospect analyst for Scout and 24/7 Sports. Before that, I wrote for Indians Baseball and Indians Prospect Insider. I go that far back on the Prospect Insider. Had stuff appear on Cleveland Fan, waiting for next year. Pretty much anywhere that is a Cleveland sports blog that was focused on baseball, you read my work, mostly relating to the draft, I was willing to bet. But potentially on anything, like I said, I have right here, if you can't see it. And this was kind of a revelation as I was looking through it beforehand. I read the scouting notebook from 1998, cover to cover, probably about 10 times. I would have been, I was 16 in 1997 when the Indians made the World Series. And, I just love things like this. Bio on every single player. I don't know how well this will show up on the YouTube. It might be fun. But it shows spray charts, how they did it against Mike Piazza here, righties versus lefties. And then the stats and, throwing strikes and what counts when you're ahead and behind. Plus, every team had their prospect list in here. I wish I'd kept a sticker on it because I know I did not pay the full freight. I'm not sure where I found it, but it was... I held on to it for a reason, right? I don't know if there's anyone in this that's still kicking around. Definitely not. Let's be honest. I was 16. There's no one left in the league from when I was 16. Even if they were a young prospect by now, they'd be, done with baseball. I was like, could there have been a kid who signed at 15 who would have made the prospect list? No. That's my co-host wants to join in. He's like, hey, I'm 14 now. Do I get signed soon? He has some thoughts on this particular scouting notebook. I do want to take a moment, though, and thank everyone for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is that you get podcasts. Free, available. And, we are an interesting take on all things Guardians. We'll get into more of this, but like I said, what was revelatory for this was the realization that, I guess I'd never really sat down and looked who wrote it and who did all the prospect profiles. So I've often talked about the two most important people in my prospect life in terms of making me realize that there are people out there who write about prospects and it's something you can do for a living. Now, I never did it for a living, but I did it as a side hustle. I did it as a national writer for multiple sites, were Jim Callis and John Sickles. And I discovered Sickles and Callis both through ESPN. Sickles was there first when I was in college at Ohio State. He wrote the farm corner for them. And then I continued to follow his work when he moved to, Bleacher Report or one of the, what was the other one, where he was minor league ball on the other side of things. He invented the term loogie, I want to say. I want to say that came from Sickles. And then Callis, who replaced him, and then Keith Hall would replace Callis. Callis was, I was at all of his chats. I remember reading all of them. It was a real big thing. He really, with Sickles, it was more about prospects in general. I distinctly remember getting the internet for the first time when I was a 16-year-old kid, and one of the first 5 things I looked for was top prospects lists. I know that's not what you're supposed to think a 16-year-old kid's going to look for. But I remember getting into, it was a 500 prospect list, Adrian Beltre at the top. And in, the low 200s was Marco Scutaro, right? Wasn't that the second baseman who played for a while in the big leagues, came up with the Guardians, was actually a friend of Bartolo Colon. But, I have that memory. I wish I could remember anything else on that list other than Beltre 1, Scutaro in the, 284s. But I totally just searched through it to see who they had from the Guardians listed, because this has always been something. But it was Callis who kind of introduced me to the draft, and I mentioned this, and again, this is kind of set up as we talk about. Again, I don't know how much people can see on this old book with the lighting, but the associate editor, Jim Callis. Every single prospect report in this book was Jim Callis's. So he was my first prospect read. I didn't realize it until tonight. And the write-up on the Minnesota Twins, by the way, John Sickles, both of them. The two people who I credit for developing my love of prospects and getting me to where I am today. Like hosting this podcast where, a good chunk of the time, I do a college wrap-up every Wednesday because of my interest in the draft and my love of the draft. Started with those two, and they're both in here, and I didn't know it until now. If you're curious, the Cleveland, then it was the Indians, now they'd be the Guardians. Paul Hoynes wrote up all the reports. A bunch of, Callis wrote some other stuff on some other ones, but he wrote up the minor league report in here on the Guardians, and it's a lot of fun to go back and look, and I held on to it because, like I said, even after the 1998 season was over, I still liked going back and looking at just all the data in it. And, soon we're going to talk about what drove you to baseball. It's like how, for a kid who was in high school, and again, I know with the lighting in here, I don't have a good light. You can't see it, but it's look for consistency in 1998. Expect a better year in 1998. This is relief pitchers, sleepers. Who was a pitching sleeper in 1998? Bartolo Colon, listed as a pitching sleeper in 1998. Let's see, is there anyone else on here from the Guardians in the starting pitching sleepers? Not really, but it's interesting to look at, and a lot of this seems to be based on base runners per inning pitched. Interesting, not really something we use anymore, but yeah, I'm gonna have fun going through it. We'll talk about some of this on the show today, and I'm sure I will be referencing it at points over the next few weeks. But I went and dug that out, and I just wanted to share it. Thought it was kind of a fun dig back in. And like I said, it just struck me that it was funny that before I knew who Callis and Sickles were, I was already reading them. Like I said, I didn't really know who Sickles was for another, probably about 3-4 years. I have distinct memories living in Taylor Tower. Anyone out there who lived in that dorm at Ohio State and being a junior, yeah, I stayed in the dorm. Go ahead and mock me if you will. It was the one thing. Who cares? I stayed in the dorm. I enjoyed my time in the dorm. But, I remember reading him junior, senior year. So 03, 04. But no, 1998, I was reading him. Callis was probably about 05, 06, 07, because I remember distinctly reading him that first year before the first draft was on TV. No, so it was 2011 was the first televised draft. It seems about right. And I just remember wanting Jason Hayward. When he slid unexpectedly out of the top 10 picks, it's wow, maybe they'll take Hayward. They took Bo Mills. That was that draft. So yeah, we'll finish talking about this for now, and we'll get back into it. I had been promising I would show it. I thought just kind of a fun thing. Hit me up on my Twitter at JeffMLBDraft. Let me know who was your influence? Is it, I don't like I said, I'm going to do a bigger piece on things like this. It's I don't distinctly remember reading specific people in the Beacon Journal growing up as a kid in Akron. As I got older, Terry Pluto was probably a name that stuck out for me, but it wasn't I didn't have an author that I was searching out. I was reading that thing cover to cover as a kid and then cutting out the stats section. There wasn't really anyone who quite vibrated to my frequency because there wasn't anyone really doing writing that was heavily stats-based or, had kind of new ways of thought. So for me, it's a lot of the writers who really got me going were these ones. Yeah, I got excited about the Beacon when it had the minor league prospects in it. So, and their statistical performance and things like that. And there wasn't as much prospect talk. So this was kind of what got me going. Who was it? Who are the people? I would be shocked. You don't have to kiss up to me at all. But is there anyone that I was that person for? I'd be a little weird to think about now. But yeah, I'd be curious to see who are the ones who influenced you, especially if you're someone like me who ended up doing it as a side hustle. Who influenced you? Who were the writers that kind of motivated you? And what were the things you liked? We're going to do, like I said, a quickie about that. I know I did it as kind of a first segment here. But I literally pulled this out to talk about on the show, and then I saw the names and it was going through, and I'm like, well, okay, we'll do some behind baseball to start. We're going to take our first break now. We're going to come back and talk Bryan Shaw again. There is good things to talk about in that, and we're also going to dive into Gabriel Arias, who has really been the talk of the day from a positive perspective. Our first sponsor of the day is BuiltBar.com. I love Built Bar. If I was not someone who was a gluten-free person, if gluten didn't make me a little ill, I'd be ordering right now because I love their puffs, and the brownie batter puff sounds delicious and amazing. And when you buy a brownie batter puff right now, sorry, hard to say brownie batter quickly, you get to try their new yellow chirps, new mini puffs, which I like their mini puffs to begin with. I did an order of minis recently back in the fall. So you're getting a free order, and you're getting the brownie batter puffs, which sound delicious. And, hey, right now, I got to point out, banana nut, which is banana nut bread, which I have eaten in the past. It is, I believe, another one I shouldn't have eaten. Found out later. But, you know, it contains milk, tree... No, okay, this one is fine. If you're like me, hey, guess what? It's just milk, soy, and tree nuts. I enjoy that one. That's currently on sale. And banana nut bread is not a all-the-time flavor. They do banana super well. I've always enjoyed banana over at BuiltBar.com. It is a sale, limited release. The brownie batter puff is a limited release. It's a great time to go and order from Built Bar. I love Built Bar. I eat Built Bar daily. I buy from Built Bar on the regular because it is a product I enjoy. They got me hooked with a few bars at the beginning, and since then I've been a loyal customer. It is great for you. It is great tasting. And remember to use the promo code LOCK15 because not only now would you get that if you ordered some brownie batters, you get 15% off. You get those bonus minis. And if you're like me and you end up loving it, you build up your Built Bar, your Built points. And there's ways to build up those points without buying anything as well. So every single time I order, I get $5 off. I use the 15% off, saying LOCKed15. And then I just keep it going. It is a delicious product. It is great for you. Go today to BuiltBar.com today. Use the promo code LOCKed15. Again, it's just a product I love. Okay, so Bryan Shaw, $3 million is ridiculous. Like, I did not like that deal when I thought he was a non-roster invitee. Who are they bidding against? And you know it is a bad deal. You know it is a horrible deal. When if you put Bryan Shaw at $3 million on waivers, no team would claim him. Nobody was rushing to sign him. We've seen the market shake down. Like I was talking about how they, Colin McHugh, it was like 2 years, $5 million. The deal for Shaw, I mean, I'd love to see. It's like 3 years with $9 million up to a potential $9 million. Like it's got crazy high. He's not going to hit him. That's part of the reason why I'm sure they felt good about. I'm trying to see if I can pull up the full specifics. I just saw it in a tweet. He made $1 million last year. Was great for a month, and then he only threw the cutter. Everyone knew it was coming. His velocity dipped, his control dipped, his strikeout rate dipped, his hard hit rate increased. He was not a good pitcher. And they're giving him $3 million with a chance for it to get up to $9 million. So we haven't seen the specifics yet. Plus, they now have to cut someone from the 40-man. So it's like, who is the person who goes? Should we just pull up the 40-man roster? Sometimes, I mean, if I could probably name all 40 for the Guardians, but that would, take me time. Just looking at the list and who's left on this team, it's like, who are they going to cut? Who is the player who probably is, that they already moved Vargas off, so, they're not going to let go one of their catchers right now. That's a guarantee. On the infield, maybe it's Yu Chen Chang. Maybe it's Ernie Clement. I just have a feeling they have so much infield depth that it's going to be an infielder as opposed to like a Logan Allen, who we talked about on the show yesterday. Why does a Logan Allen or a Sam Hentges stick around even though they've never been effective? Because no one's going to be ready to throw more than like 70 pitches. They need guys who have experience as a starter to piggyback. And with Cody Morris moving to the disabled list, and I don't think he gets moved to the 60-man unless they are really desperate and don't want to cut someone. But if they're that desperate, they need to make a trade. And like I said, even if you are not trading for help for now, then it is time to do those trades that Tampa is famous for, where they trade. And they did those trades with the Guardians, adding someone like Ruben Cardenas. When they traded Tobias Myers to Cleveland and got a prospect in the lower minors. The Guardians need to do that. If you're not going to figure out a way to handle your 40-man when it's overstuffed, that's what you need to do. And right now, you're not going to let go of one of those outfielders. I've talked about many times. There's some level of value to all of them. Infield, you have so many players. I think that's where you have to go. So yeah, just with the general look on this team, I think it's probably Clement, as he's just more buried. And I don't know it's either that or, if they think Yu Chen Chang isn't going to break camp with the team, which could happen, then maybe it's him. But the fact that he got a $3 million contract when they were bidding against nobody, because Willis and Francona bemoaned veteran leadership, and this is the guy they wanted back, even though he wasn't good for most of the season and hasn't been good. He's got a negative WAR for the last 4 years, every single year. $3 million is a lot. The chance to get up to $9 million in incentives, and if those incentives are like appearances or innings pitched, which I doubt they are, like he'll hit those because Tito's going to run him out there all the time. He loves him to death. It's rough. It's extremely rough to see this, and I don't know what they're doing. It just doesn't make any sense. Outside of because even if you're like, okay, this is what Tito wanted, is management giving a manager his desire, why does it take $3 million? Because it shouldn't. There's no way. And for a team that's like refusing to spend, the only reason I see to give him $3 million is to bump up your payroll past a few other teams. So when people start looping together the really bad teams in terms of payroll, the teams who aren't paying anyone, when Jock Peterson's tweet about low spenders gets kicked around the whole league and makes, it pops up on my phone because it got enough traction, and other teams are making fun of the Guardians for their lack of spending. And, it's a Dallas Keuchel and Jock Peterson and others, I'm sure, is you give him $3 million to make it less embarrassing. So you're not like bottom three. I went and looked at Sports Track. It only moves them past one team according to that, but the Sports Track data is wrong. It doesn't have any of the arbitration eligible deals in it, so it's not all that worthwhile, which is, Jock Peterson clearly got his info from there, and that was also like wrong information, so that, he still has absolutely right to call out those teams. But that's literally the only thing that makes sense for giving Bryan Shaw $3 million. There's no way that he is worth that, and there's no way that anyone was bidding that, and instead he signed, and it's ridiculous, and I don't know. There's Zach Meisel had a great thing where it just shows like hard hit percentage by month. And you see this line, like May, he's at 10%, or April. May, it starts going up. By June, his hard hit percentage is up to 45. Just a straight line. April, May, like everyone's realized he had one pitch and was coming all the time, and everyone started to hit it hard all the time. And his average exit velocity on that cutter went from 84 up to the 90s. The slugging percentage on it went up massively. The average on it went up massively. I mean, he had that great April and May, and then everyone knew it was coming, and he got tagged up. And yeah, should I say it again? $3 million. This team spent $4 million, which right now, if we're looking at what they're at, like a $49 million payroll, so it's like $52 million. 4 divided by 52, if I did the math, is what, 13%, right? Is that? Let me know if I'm wrong. But yeah, 13% of the payroll to 2 players who should have been non-roster invitees or league minimums. Luke Maile hasn't been able to keep a big league job. He's okay as a backup. He's solid as a backup, and I get it. The free agent catcher market is pretty awful, but it's not like he's bringing enough to really earn $1 million to a team. And I mean, I'd have to go dig and look. I mean, Roberto Perez got something similar, right? Like, didn't he get just about as much to go to Pittsburgh? And he's, a much better defender and has some physical tools there to at least fall into some power. The other side of things is, I don't understand. It is a very smart front office. It is a front office I've defended to the hilt. It is a front office filled with people who do their jobs exceptionally well. At the end of the day, they probably looked at the free agent catcher market and goes, we need someone. We need someone we can trust defensively. We value defense, framing, and calling a game. So at least I could make sense of that signing. Was it an overpay? Yes. But it is one that you could make sense of based on the market. There's no logic or sense to be made out of Shaw. That's just the truth, man. I don't get it, and you're never going to be able to explain it to me because unless you're looking at like ERA, which we know is like extremely flawed for a sample size of a reliever, there is no statistical proof that he was anything other than replacement level over the course of a full season. And there's nothing to show that he was good over the course of a full season. He had his worst walk rate of his career. So not only did teams figure him out and start to hit him hard, his ability to command the strike zone started to get worse. It's going to be a bad year. Like I said it earlier, I didn't think he'd finish the year with the team. They're paying him $3 million. Now it's likely. But yeah, I think we'll see him added, official announcement soon. And then we'll have to see either they decide to just send Cody Morris to the 60-day disabled list because they're worried about his overall shoulder fatigue. Again, that would be a bit overkill when you're saying, 4 to 6 weeks, because even the long end of that is only 42 days. But the other side of it is cutting a Clement, likely. Cutting a Chang, one of those guys. So I don't know what you do. But we're going to take our next break, come back, and talk a little Michael Conforto and why he's the last man standing after one of our free agent targets signed yesterday after I'd finished recording the podcast. Let's talk about our good friends over at Bet Online. It's the time of year again as college basketball's tournament is finally upon us. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net is the number one source for all of your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sporting wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, so I put out the stat book, talked about it. Well, hopefully, maybe we get a little bit of a nugget from there. Let's talk about the fact that Tommy Pham got $7.5 million, which is more than I expected, honestly, to go to the Reds. I don't know what the Reds are doing either. I get it. Let me change that. Here's the thing. Tommy Pham wasn't that bad a year ago. He's not making a ton of money. By midseason, he will be a trade asset. He is a candidate to rebound. But even if he doesn't rebound, he has a league average bat. Teams always need outfield assistance. He is going to be a trade asset for them. They will turn, he'll turn $3.5 million or so into a trade asset. So I get what the Reds are doing. Let me change that. That leaves essentially Michael Conforto. So why is Michael Conforto the last man standing? I know a lot of people have liked him at various points. There's two big driving factors here. One, he's unvaccinated. That means he's not going to be able to play in Canada all year. And teams, like it was talked that the Red Sox specifically wanted a discount on signing him if they gave him a one-year deal because he's not going to play in a significant number of their games. Two, if you have any inside knowledge of baseball, any connections to anyone in New York, he was not loved. You hear about certain players through the years, and he was a player that was not well liked in his clubhouse, and people know about that. So when you combine that concern, some of that with teammates was work ethic. I had heard at points, which also, that leads to why teams don't always want to extend someone. It's the stuff behind baseball like that. So when you combine the fact that they have a manager who has been unable to stay healthy and is a high risk, even if he's been vaccinated. And the fact of the matter is that when you face Toronto, you're not going to have access to him. Those are things. This team has had some ups and downs with COVID the last 2 years. I laugh because, we all remember essentially after Clevenger was a bonehead, it just gave him all the more reason to ship him out. And Plesac is still here, and he's had his ups and downs. Fran Mill had 2 issues. And I don't know who's vaccinated and who isn't. I can't, but we know Conforto is not, and I think that is something that teams care about. It's an added headache, and it's even though New York is now cleared, and that Judge and why am I blanking on the first baseman? It's not Rendon, man. It happens to us all the time. And the worst part, I can tell you, it's he was a Boston Red Sox prospect who went to the Padres and then got traded to the Cubs for, I believe, a pitching prospect that completely failed for them. but I can't remember his name. I've gotten so bad with names as I get older. It's like Anthony R. Why can I not think? Oh my goodness. You guys are seeing a brain melt here on a live podcast. It's life's weird sometimes, I guess. But yeah, no, to get into it, Anthony Rizzo. Not Anthony Rendon, Anthony Rizzo. Could not think of the last name Rizzo to save my life. Had so much data, but just last name. And now I'm thinking of Joe Rizzo, the former first base, third baseman who came up, was a high school kid, a draft pick, Seattle system, Mariners maybe. This is where my mind and how it works. You're seeing behind the madness. But Conforto is still out there because, one, he cost you a draft pick. 2, he's unvaccinated. 3, he didn't get along with people well in New York. And it's 3 strikes and you're out. Teams, in 4, he's going to cost money to sign because he's a good player. Teams don't want to do number 4 when you have those other 3 issues. And that's just plain simply what it's going to come down to. And that's why he is still out there. If a guy is still standing right now, when everyone else has been snapped up, when the market is basically barren. We went through and did the all free agent team on the show earlier this week. It is a barren market. He is still there because of those reasons. And those are also the reasons why he doesn't really make a lot of sense to Cleveland. Losing a second round pick, not having full access to him, not being the best teammate in a clubhouse that seems to have a really good environment. Those are things that are going to make you not a target. I still think they desperately need to make a trade. I don't think it's going to happen, and they're kind of a joke right now. There's no other way around it. With the return, we talked about before, with the return of revenue sharing after the COVID year, and then the year after the COVID year kind of shutting that down. The new baseball streams, we're seeing Apple TV and what they paid. So I'm trying to remember the other channel, I'm blanking off the top of my head. It was Peacock or something weird like that. It was not one of the big name ones. Got other streaming rights. They're selling multiple streaming rights for hundreds of millions of dollars. And there's a minority owner coming in to add additional cash. And again, I thought the minority owners would want to come, but they haven't been announced yet. And that could also be the problem. Until that is formally announced, technically it hasn't happened. Everything needs to be done so they can make that announcement. Because if you're the minority ownership, you want to make sure that you are there on the podium for any big signing, right? So there could also be just a degree of hands are tied right now until that is official, signed, and announcements have been made. I've seen now talk that when he comes in, when Blitzer comes in and buys it, it's going to be a 35%. I don't know what's happening. I don't have any inside info in that area, but it does certainly feel like this team, A, should have the space to have spent money. B, they could have spent $6 million on Jock Peterson and gotten definitely more value in terms of WAR than the $4 million they spent on Shaw and Melee. And it just, I preach patience, but there's nothing left. The patience was there, and they kind of wanted to wait and see what the prices would be. And guess what? The prices never came down to their liking, or they just sat there and waited in the weeds too much on these trades that they were not able to win. And now they're stuck. And I don't know what they're going to do, because it is an extremely flawed roster right now. It is a 40-man that is an absolute disaster show, where they have a ton of hard decisions coming at, it was around this time last year where I started saying, hey, watch out for the 40-man. It's going to be a real issue. And it ended up being an issue. And it doesn't get any easier next year because they built a deep system. It's great they've done that, but these decisions are going to keep getting harder. They need to start doing the San Diego Padres approach and trading 3 or 4 guys who are going to be eligible to teams that don't have to worry about such things, and overpaying for talent, which I don't know if they'd ever be willing to overpay for. That's just not in their DNA. And if not that, then they need to start doing what Tampa does, where you're trading assets that are ready now that you don't have space for, aka Tobias Myers, for assets that can help you down the road to get, just to kind of slow the hit. Now, Tampa is also up against it, but they refuse to sit back and let anyone go for free. They always work out some kind of deal. They always find a way to go out and continually add to their depth, and we just haven't seen that. We haven't seen the Guardians do anything. Like, that's just the truth of the matter right now. They're just kind of sitting in the background with the same flawed team from a year ago. And again, I know when I sit down to have discussions with the other Locked On hosts next week, they're going to predict the Guardians to finish last. And I don't agree with that because they were a 500 team whose pitching staff was mostly hurt. I think they are kind of still a 500-ish team who's, they're counting on improvements across the board, but it's hard to see a pathway to success. Let's put it that way. I have been Jeff Ellis. This has been the Locked On Guardians podcast. Remember to rate and review, download daily, subscribe, like, comment on YouTube, all of those things, simple things you can do for free to help out the show. We're at 48 subscribers on YouTube. Still one of the lower ones. Now, I was also one of the last hosts to jump on to the YouTube bandwagon. But yeah, if you could help get us up there, I would much appreciate that. And as we end every show now, go Guardians, go.